Well, it's Friday, folks. You know what that means. It's time for another Quick Queries Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. This is Quick Queries number 33. What's a Quick Queries video? Well, it's where I go over all the questions that people send in to me, either on my website or by email or on YouTube. And lots of these questions don't deserve a video on their own. Well, not that they don't deserve a video on their own, but they're shorter answer questions. And so that's what a Quick Queries video is about. So let's take a look. First up, we've got Claudio asking if anyone knows of any user groups or events in Canada, specifically in the Toronto area, especially during July. Not too specific, are we? So I live in Brazil, but I'll be in Canada during that time. No, I personally don't. I live in Florida, so I used to live in Buffalo, New York, so I used to be pretty close to Toronto, but I've been down here for the past 12 years now. But I do not. Hopefully someone watching this video might have more information. I did a quick Google search. No more than you could do, and I didn't find anything off the top. So I can't help you there. Maybe someone else knows something. If you do, post in the comments down below. Jackass wants to know if I'd recommend some books for learning VBA from Microsoft Access. Yeah, I got a couple on my shelf. Most of them are older because I haven't actually bought any books in a while for Access. The last one that I bought, I think, was the Access 2016 Bible. In fact, I did a video book review of the Access 2019 Bible a little while back in 2019, I think, or 2020 I did it. So it's a couple years old, but fortunately Access hasn't changed that much in the last 5 years. Some other books I'd recommend for the basics of VBA programming. The Dummies book's pretty good. Access Programming by Example's pretty good. The Inside Out series are really good, although I don't think it's been updated in a while, but again, a lot of the VBA code hasn't changed. It's more about how it's written and the examples they give. These are some of the books that I learned from. They used to make an Unleashed series. I think it was by Sam's Publishing, and that was really good too. I had all the Unleashed books. In fact, I still got most of them on my shelf. Yeah, I just did a search on Amazon. They haven't updated that. They have not updated that series since 2000, so that's a little bit older too. But I'll put links to all these books down below for you, using my Amazon affiliate link, of course. I'll get a few pennies. And don't forget, all of my developer courses, all my courses in general, but my developer ones too, they all come with handbooks. So it's video training, but there's also a printable handbook that goes with it. So if you like reading this stuff too, right, there's an optional PDF handbook right down here you can get. And there it is. And it opens up in your browser and you can read it. And it covers most of the stuff that's covered in the lessons, right? Where is it at here? Let's see. Intro to VBA. Lesson here. Shows you what we do. Screenshots, right? So yeah, I got books too. One of these days I'll get around to publishing some of these up on Amazon, but that's just not enough hours in the day. All right, Sybil wants the value of the primary key of the last record in the table. And time is not important. So, okay, so you don't care about chronological entry. You care about the actual order they were entered into the table. Now, D first and D last generally return the first and last record in the current sort order. So if you change your sort order, then you might not get the actual first and last records. And if you're using auto numbers are not necessarily always in order either, as far as the order they were entered. You could, delete records, compact and repair. There's ways to insert records with auto numbers. If you delete auto number 4, you can use an append query to sneak it back in there. So there's all kinds of tricks you can play. It generally gives you the first and last records the way the records are sorted right now. Okay, but again, that's why I don't like to rely on first and last. And they can change over time with, compact and repair operations and stuff like that. I would much rather have some kind of either a time index, or if you care about chronological entry, then, and you don't want to use time, you could have your own counter. That gets tricky with a multi-user setup. So it all depends on, I would use some other field rather than just the primary key. Because me, personally, I always use auto numbers as primary keys. And that's generally a pretty good way of telling, when the record was added. But it's not perfect. So I would need more specifics on exactly what you're doing, exactly what kind of data your table is holding, and exactly why you need the last record and not the most recent record. Because I usually just use Dmax, and if it's a table that I care about the entry, I put a timestamp on it. So I need more information to answer your question properly. Next up, Armadugula says he wants to know if Access has an autocomplete for continuous form fields like in Excel. or it prompts text based on rows above in the same column. You know, it doesn't by default, but we could probably rig something like this up. I got the gears are smoking in my brain right now. You could use a value list combo box, or even a regular combo box, or a relational combo box. Yeah, I bet you we could figure something out. Let me play with it, and I'm going to add this to my list and see what I can come up with. But you're right, Access and Excel, they handle differently, completely different. Handle data completely differently. So I'd have to experiment with this and play with it, but I'll definitely add it to my list, and stay tuned. Michael says he just discovered the use of back theme color index, and that is now his preferred method of setting colors according to theme. And there's the code right there. Thanks for sharing, Michael. I almost never use themes. In fact, I talk about this in a lot of my videos. I just don't like users being able to manipulate their theme and change all my colors. And sometimes I build forms specifically with specific colors because, you know, I try to keep like all the customer stuff will have this color and blah, blah, blah. And if I want it green, it's going to be green. So, but no, but thanks for the code, and I'll check it out. I have never seen this before myself. So they must have added this recently. But see, again, I don't play with themes much. There's certain things in Access that I never use, right? Like the tabbed interfaces and stuff like that. So there's a lot of code that's new to me, but thank you for sharing. Stuart says he has an issue where he has a modal forms open, sometimes 2 or 3 deep. That's your first problem. I'm going to stop you there. I never have more than one modal form open at a time. I try to avoid it if all possible. I remember from years back, now we're going back, I had something similar to what you have happened, where you open multiple modal forms, and they start to go crazy. They don't like that. And then, yeah, you swap apps, you click back on Access, it's unclickable, you can't minimize, sometimes you got to kill Access. Is there a way to kill it? Yeah, not that I know of, no, but again, I try to avoid this situation. I try to limit it to one modal form at a time, and I'm very limited with what I do with modal forms. They've got their place, they're fantastic, they work great, but don't overuse them. Try not to go 3 deep if you can. So, the one problem I know that I've had with modal forms is that they'll open on a different monitor. Like the screen that I record on is my big monitor on top of my laptop. My laptop is screen 1. And sometimes if I'm recording a video for you guys and I open up a modal form, it opens up on my laptop screen. So if that might be happening to you. It might be opening somewhere where you just can't see it. Maybe in all of your modal forms, try baking in a button you can click that's got a keyboard shortcut on it. Right? A sign like an Alt key, like an Alt X or something. So you got a button on each of your modal forms where if the user hits Alt X, it'll close it. Or bake in an escape key. Make a cancel button, and hitting escape pushes that button. So if you've got modal forms open, hitting escape should close them down. You could try either one of those, right? Use a cancel button. Miss Sale says, can you teach Power BI? Power BI, Power BI, however you pronounce it. It's like people who pronounce SQL, SQL. I don't like that. It's SQL. Anyways. He really likes how I teach. Having both Access and Power BI working together is something that managers like a lot. Yeah, okay. It's on my list, but I don't yet consider myself an expert with it. And I don't like to teach something unless I'm an expert with it. So Access I'm an expert with. Basic Excel I'm an expert with. But I would need to do some more studying myself before I teach Power BI. So we'll get there. It's on my list. I got so much other stuff I want to do first, though. So I can't promise a date, but thank you very much for the compliments. Giorgio wants to know, is the Tech Help free template available to non-members? Yeah, of course. That's why it's called the Tech Help free template. It's a free database you can grab off my website if you want to. I recommend you start with this one, though. This is how I build the blank template, and then from there I build it up until add the customer form, we add the contact manager, we add the invoicing. But start here if you want to see how the whole thing is built. But if you want to just grab it off my website, then you can do that too. You'll find it on that page as well. But yeah, it's free. The members have their own version, which has some additional extra stuff in it. But yeah, go grab it, get it, learn it, tear it apart, figure out how it works. All right, next up, this is one about my force shutdown video, where I show you how to force the database to shut down at a particular date and time, or just a particular time. From Meister EMH. EMH. You wouldn't happen to be a medical hologram, would you? Maybe? But anyways, he says he's got one issue. He says if one of the tasks the user is looking up a ticket, the database would pop up a little window as part of the query criteria. Okay, sounds like it's the enter parameter value window to ask for the ticket number. And of course, that would sit there until the user inputs the ticket number and presses enter. But if the user doesn't put in the ticket number, the window just sits there waiting for input. And when the auto shutdown happens, Access kind of hangs. Yeah, that's a big problem. Any of those pop-ups, whether it's a message box, an input box, an enter parameter value window, those are all going to just sit there and force Access to freeze. So the best option is to not use them if that's the case. You're going to have to replace them with your own. I've got videos on my website how to make your own message box, how to make your own input box, that kind of stuff. And you won't have the same problem. Or you can have another application watch your Access database, and when it's time to restart, if it's locked, force kill it. I built a template for my database that does basically just that. I call it the Access Watchdog. And I've got a server machine running 24/7. It does things like, check my website status and send out emails and all that kind of stuff. And so if it locks up, then I need to reboot it, right? And if I'm not home or if I'm traveling, then I don't want to have to log in and fix it or, get up at 3 a.m. So I built this, and it will just force kill Access. Now, generally, you want to try to avoid hitting end task on a Microsoft Access database because you could corrupt it. But chances are, if Watchdog kicks in, if you have to end the task, Access is already frozen anyways. So you're probably not going to interrupt any read-write, because if you interrupt read-write to the disk, that's when you get corrupted databases. But I've been using this Watchdog template for, I think I built this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I've never had a corrupted database because of it. Because whenever Watchdog kicks in, the database is already locked, and it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. And it's usually sitting there at some kind of a VB error, or it tries to connect to my website. Sometimes that times out and it hangs. But this takes care of it. So, and you can do it with any old, if you know how to write a batch file or some PowerShell scripting or whatever, you can do it. This is just a little more elegant solution. And I think I used VB script for it. So it's not hard to do. But you obviously can't do it from inside Access because Access is frozen if that pop-up comes up, right? It stops all execution. You have to have another program, a third-party program, or even a different, well, I wouldn't use a different Access database. You could run 2 Access databases side by side, but no, I wouldn't do that. Because then if msaccess.exe itself locks up, it could freeze both of them. But it's kind of like when people say activate the emergency medical hologram, and then they just leave sickbay and forget to turn it off. So that's annoying, right? It's just like when your Access database locks up. So, okay, hope that helps. Next up, TMD wants to know why I don't use Microsoft's naming conventions like TBL customers or QRY orders for queries, for example. And variables are LNG, STR, double, etc. So the user knows what type the forms or variables are without looking for declares. Well, lots of reasons why. I'll give you the history. The notation that you're referring to is called Hungarian notation. It's a naming convention where prefixes indicate the object or data type, like TBL customers. And variables have like STR name. Now, as far as the objects go, tables and queries and stuff, when I first started learning Access back in the Access 2.0 days, I was self-taught. I had a couple of books, and the book that I was learning from didn't have any naming conventions at all. And in fact, I learned from the Northwind Traders database too, and the original Northwind Traders database didn't have any naming conventions at all either. I'll talk about this in a minute. It just had, tables named customers and a form named orders. And at that time, Access didn't clearly distinguish between tables and queries in dialog boxes like with the form wizard. So when you went to build a form, they were all just lumped together in one list. You'd see all the tables and queries to pick for your data source. You'd have customers and customers. You had no idea which one was which. Now it distinguishes between the tables and queries, but back then it didn't when I was first learning. So I had no idea about this Hungarian notation at the time, and I just came up with the idea, well, I'm going to put T on the end of all my tables and Q on the end of all my queries, so I know which one's which. And that's when I started doing that. I just did F and R for forms and reports to maintain consistency, and then I did M for macros and MOD for modules. So that was just something I came up with. And remember, this is 1994, so I'm what, 22 at the time, and there's no internet, there's no Google. I couldn't learn this stuff online. So I've been doing it that way for 30 years, and it's just stuck. But there's also some advantages to my system. You know, all the customer-related objects could be sorted together. Customer T, customer Q, customer F. And it still distinguishes the objects clearly. It's just in a different position. Whether it's a suffix or a prefix doesn't really matter. As far as the variable types go, string, long, that kind of stuff, I use those occasionally. Sometimes I'll put a string on the end of something, especially if I want to distinguish it between a text box and a string in memory. Like I'll have first name text and first name string sometimes, so I know which one's which, because you might have to handle them differently that way. And using these prefixes can be helpful, but I find that good variable names and proper scoping usually make their purpose obvious. I don't have gigantic subs most of the time, so if you are curious what it is, it's just you just scroll up a little bit and you can see it. And I've been trying to declare variables close to where they're first used. That makes it easier too. But I don't feel the need to rigidly stick to a convention as far as naming my variables go, because most of them are, very what's the word I'm looking for? They're very self-explanatory. You know what first name is. You know what num children means, and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, naming conventions are more about clarity and consistency, and Microsoft's standard is fine. They didn't have the standard when I started learning, at least the Northwind Traders database didn't. But my system has worked fine for me and my students for decades. In fact, I find it funny because sometimes I'll go on like Reddit or Quora or one of those other sites, and I'll see someone post some code or help with a table or a query, and they're using my naming convention, and I know I came up with that, so I'm like, yes, they learned from me. But there's no single right way. It's just whatever works best for you and your team and your project. And if you're working with a team of people, maybe some of whom have learned, in college how to build databases the right way, then you might have to stick with this Hungarian notation, because yes, this is more popular in the world as far as real quote unquote database people are concerned. But yeah, I just did a little Googling. I happened to find this is the original Northwind Traders that came with Access 2.0. And notice, order space details. That's one of my things I never do, right? Their tables, that's just categories, customers, employees, right? Their field names, product space name. Oh, I cringe. Never put spaces in field names or table names, stuff like that. So they didn't have any consistency whatsoever when they put together the Northwind Traders database. So, I learned on my own going with this and a couple of books, and I just kind of did it that way, and it's stuck. So it's a habit, and I like it. It works for me. It's consistent, and I know what everything is. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you very much for it. All right, folks, that's going to do it. That's your quick queries, number 33. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope you learned something. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button right now and give me a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. And make sure you click that bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. Do you need help with your Microsoft Access project? Whether you need a tutor, a consultant, or a developer to build something for you, check out my Access Developer Network. It's a directory I put together personally of Access experts who can help with your project. Visit my website to learn more. Any links or other resources that I mentioned in the video can be found in the description text below the video. Just click on that show more link right there. YouTube's pretty good about hiding that, but it's there. Just look for it. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, tables, all that stuff. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? And if you like level 1, level 2 is just $1. That's it. And it's free for members of my YouTube channel at any level. Speaking of memberships, if you're interested in joining my channel, you get all kinds of awesome perks. Silver members get access to all of my extended cut tech help videos, and there's hundreds of them by now. They also get one free beginner class each month, and yes, those are from my full courses. Gold members get the previous perks plus access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my tech help videos. Plus you get access to my code vault where I keep tons of different functions and all kinds of source code that I use. And gold members get one free expert class every month after completing the beginner series. Platinum members get all of the previous perks, plus they get all of my beginner courses, all of them from every subject, and you get one free advanced or developer class every month after finishing the expert series. And you can become a diamond sponsor and have your name listed on the sponsor page on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time.